inner peace, better health. The space where inner stillness meets spiritual awakening. Tonight, we are diving into something truly extraordinary with John Townsend, a voice channeler and author of Channeled Messages of Hope. John bridges worlds literally by channeling wisdom from historical figures like Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, and John McCain. These messages aren't spooky, they are deeply spiritual, shockingly relevant, and filled with insights for our personal peace and collective future. So, if you have ever wondered what the great minds of the past might say about today's challenges, stay with us. So, John, how did your journey with voice channeling begin? And was there a moment where you realized this was more than intuition? It was a gift?
Well, let me say that this book, there's three authors on the bottom, John and Carolyn Thomas. I'm John Thomas. We were the primary researchers, converse with the souls. Then we had a channeler. Her name was Sam Larkin, who is what we call a voice channeler. She's like the internet of channeling. Voices flow through her unimpeded. We get the when the soul comes into Sam's space, they basically take over her persona to allow Carolyn and myself to have direct conversations with them. This is not an ask the channeler, channeler transfers it, channeler gets a message, channeler tells it back to you. We had direct voice channeling with the souls. So I am per se not the channeler. What was interesting about this is that when we can talk to the souls in that very unique one-on-one way in a dialogue fashion, their personalities come through, their accents would even come through. Sam, who is a West Coast person with no real accent, as we would say in the USA, but we were able to have direct dialogue and conversation with the souls. That was the way we were able to get the information.
That's amazing. So, what was the first channel message you received that truly shifted your worldview?
Well, the first one is not in the book. And the first one is that Sam and Carolyn had been longtime friends, and Sam had a very uh, clairvoyant type capability. She could really communicate with animals. We're having two animals in our house, two cats that were having problems. So Sam, knowing Carolyn, tried to help us out with that. But later, Sam called Carolyn and said, "Look, I'm getting very high vibrational messages, and I know they're for you. I don't know what the messages are. I know they're for you." So what Sam and Carolyn decided to do was do a session. And actually, these sessions are done over Zoom. I mean, they don't have to be in the same room, anything. So in this session, Sam tried to bring in the soul that had the high vibrational messages for Carolyn. And it turned out this soul, we'll call him Baba here, is what we would now refer to as an ascended master. He's probably on something we also have learned about, and we are not spiritual experts down here. We learned about the council, which is a group of ascended masters. And Carolyn was able to hear from Baba that Baba had some specific, I don't want to say requirements. It's not like that, but the council was counting on Carolyn to be someone that could carry messages. Carolyn had earlier had a premonition that, after she talked to Baba and then learned that she could connect with souls, maybe she could connect with many different souls and be able to bring in messages of hope from the other side who hopefully have a longer term view than we do. And this all started through the communication that started up through Sam. And what Baba basically told Carolyn through several communications is this idea of getting messaging from the, prominent souls around a topic that we are telling you is a problem topic, the environment. This is the topic we want you to focus on to bring messages of hope to the masses through all your work that you'll do with the afterlife. So Carolyn thought it was her inspiration. Truly, it was Baba's inspiration representing the council. And that's how the whole thing started.
That's incredible. It's one thing to believe in spirit, it's another to hear their wisdom echo through you.
Well, this book, let me say that this book is designed for people that are spiritually open, spiritually curious, and are maybe in despair of where the environment and probably other aspects of our world going. We're not here to convince people on the authenticity or the specificness or anything of the channeling. Look, if you're a skeptic on that, you're probably not our demographic. But plenty of people know that this level of communication is possible, and especially through certain people that have greatly advanced skills. So we learned so many things, so very specific. This is not just about ask the souls about the environment. We asked about how does it work transitioning from being in a body onto the other side? Who greets you? Who helps you? How do you actually work on the other side with people on earth? What is this whole situation with lifetimes and how many and how they're decided? We went into all of these different places with many of the souls in the book. So it's a book of, if you're spiritually open and curious and you care about the environment, I think you're really going to like a lot of the content in this book. It's probably made well for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, your book shares messages from figures like Tesla and Roosevelt. What's one insight from these sessions that speak directly to the chaos of our modern world?
Tesla and who else? Just Tesla?
Tesla and Roosevelt.
Oh, Tesla and Roosevelt. Oh, yeah, those guys go together. First of all, when you look at the table of contents of our book, there's 19 souls. Some people would say, oh, it's a political book. No, this is not a political book. We interviewed policy makers that were important with respect to environmental topics. Theodore Roosevelt, case in point. Theodore Roosevelt is really the architect of our national park system. And we can thank John Muir, who had a great connection with Theodore Roosevelt, brought Theodore Roosevelt into the Yosemite Valley and other areas too, so that he could see it firsthand. So what Roosevelt did is he saw that opportunity, and when he went back to Washington, he started making a series of executive decisions, I guess we would call them, setting aside certain lands for federal parks. He saw the need for that, and John Muir educated him. John Muir is a noted preservationist for sure. Then you go to Tesla. Okay, Tesla, very interesting. Yeah, he spent his whole life inventing reams and reams of paper inventions. He had 5, 6 trunks full of, all of his scientific work. That's all he did. So Tesla was doing a lot of work on something that will help us out in the economy or the environment, I'm sorry, called nuclear fusion. Nuclear fission is the dividing of, it creates all the radioactive waste. And whenever there's a reactor problem, it's a fission reactor and nobody likes it. Fusion nuclear, though, is completely clean, 100% clean, and it has much higher energy capability, by the way. So both, Einstein, Tesla, some of the other technologists, they said this technology is in the works. Luckily, the younger generation of your country really understands where these clean energy initiatives need to be. They are working on it. Probably within 2 to 3 decades, you'll start to see nuclear fusion, which would obviate the need for fossil-based burning, coal and things like that. So,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, how can listeners use this message to ground themselves in hope?
well, here was my experience going through the book. First of all, Carolyn Thomas is the primary author. She's the inspiration. She's the one that Bob and the council have the connection with. And she asked me to enter because we live here near Silicon Valley in California. I guess more of a tech guy. You might say I've spent my life in tech. So she said, when I'm going to talk to the more technical people like Tesla and others, maybe you can help me out. And I said, sure. But when you look at the totality of the table of contents, what you'll find is there's policymakers, preservationists, conservationists. We have spiritual leaders in here. And when you put all those different kinds of people together, they have different messages on what to do with the environment. Let me give you a really good example. Saint Francis, Wayne Dyer, spiritual leaders, Gandhi, spiritual leader. What Wayne would tell us is that man has been not treating the earth very well. And when you treat something that you're connected to not well, like pretend a family member, you can't expect to get a lot of respect and benefit back from that family member. So, what the spiritual leaders told us is that the earth is distressed with the way that man is treating the earth. And Saint Francis told us that if we just can remember that we are one, man is not above anything else. Man is connected to animals, plants, the environment. Ocean has a soul, the earth has a soul. We are all connected, and the earth has given us this great gift of allowing to sustain our life. And one of the John Muir, he said, if everyone would treat the earth as if it were a church, there'd be a lot more respect for the earth. And then Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain, we talked to him because Nikola Tesla said talk to Samuel Clemens. We didn't know Samuel was such an avid investor on his own back in the day. Great friends with Nikola. And I think if I remember the quote right from Samuel Clemens, it's like, buy land, buy land, buy land. There will never be more. It's kind of a little bit of a twist up on some of the more common investing guidelines of the day. So, we have to, and we even interviewed Richard Nixon, who was far ahead of his time on environmental procedure. So I thought I'd just throw that in at the end.
So needed. It's comforting to know even the greats are still guiding us, just in a new form.
What was the question again?
No, I was just saying that's so needed. It's comforting to know even the greats are still guiding us, just in a new
Oh,
form.
yeah. Yeah, it's in a new form. And here's the other thing we learned is spiritually. How do the entities on the other side, the souls on the other side, work with people on earth? And the way they do it's very interesting, is that any person on earth can ask any soul, dearly departed or whatever, to be their guide. And their guide doesn't mean that they necessarily map their life out. No, we have free will here in the body. But if we've asked people like Nikola Tesla or St. Francis or Wayne Dyer, every now and then you'll get an inspiration, you'll get something, maybe you'll get a message, maybe some butterfly will come by. There'll be some ways that the soul will want to interact with you if you want interaction with that soul. And there's no limit to how many lives in a body that a soul can be a guide for. They made that clear. It's not a zero-sum game. So we have things like John McCain working with a group on the other side about preserving democracy, these things that they fought for in their lifetimes. But we also found out some really interesting stuff. We were talking to people in their as souls in the lifetime that we were interested in. Let's say, for example, let's use Theodore Roosevelt. Well, Theodore Roosevelt also, when he went to the other side as Theodore, has now come back to Earth in a body in a new lifetime. And he told us, and we started to learn to ask. He is here as a Kenyan monk. And you would say, why would Theodore Roosevelt come in as a Kenyan monk? Because the process, as we understand it, is we go through our lifetime, we have our lessons, we learn as much as we can. When we transition, we'll have a life review. And where we need to learn more lessons, maybe we'll get another lifetime to work on that. And I think Theodore wanted a lifetime to work on his reverence of animals and having a very calm life and, respect for all things around him. And things like that. Theodore Roosevelt, he was moving very fast. He was a very impressive man. One of the most impressed lifetimes that I can point to. But even he felt maybe there was some life lessons. And so he's back here as we speak in another body, in another place, doing different things.
Absolutely. So, channeling can be deeply emotional. How do you prepare yourself mentally, spiritually, even physically for these connections?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the way this normally works is when the interviews were happening, as you can see, there were a number of 19 on the list. Carolyn would do a lot of research on the soul, on that soul's lifetime. She would come up with a framework, the questions we wanted answers to. And even as we got further into the process with more souls, we got better and better at asking questions. Questions such as, what are you doing in the afterlife? How do you influence people, life in a body? What was your transition like? We start to get really good on answering those questions. And if you read or listen, we have a audio book out now too, where you can actually hear the souls talking through Sam. We can learn we can learn a lot, but the way we prepared ourselves was really, we pretty much had a process, and that process would be Carolyn would do all the research. I would discuss with Carolyn how we want this one to go. Carolyn would then contact Channeler Sam maybe the day before and say, Sam, we might like to talk to, I don't know, Saint Francis of Assisi, and maybe we'll show her a picture. Sam wasn't really historically up on all the different figures we talked to. It's not, she's just a regular citizen, financial services, and it's not kind of her business, if I can put it that way. So the next day, we would get a Zoom meeting going because Sam lived an hour away. Sam had a particular invocation prayer where she cleared her chakras and then would invite the soul in. And when the soul came in, what was amazing is the soul really takes her persona, and you will hear Scottish accents come out of Sam when we place questions to John Muir, an Eastern European kind of accent out of Tesla, you and so we recorded all this. And so you can hear snippets of this on our website at www.channelmessagesofhope. We also have an audio book that has the full recording of the soul speaking through Sam, cleaned up into a professionally acceptable format. So, and yeah, it would take a lot of energy. What we found is the souls had about an hour they could do before they got tired. Sam would get very tired an hour in. And for us, we didn't have that fatigue factor, but we had to put in all the time in advance to research the interview.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So, do you believe anyone can learn to access spirit, or is it a path meant for a few?
The souls would tell us that we all have the capability. I think it's a lot of faith and learning how to do it, and probably working with other people with psychic abilities. For instance, Carolyn, she can feel certain things and she knows she's being pushed or guided in a certain way. We can get messages because, Carolyn has many guides. All of us could have many guides. A lot of times we don't even know who the guides are, but the ones we ask certainly will show up. Um, and so, it feels like it's it's right. And we get such information through these sessions, things that are just so specific that could never be um, made up, like John Muir telling us he's in a body as an adolescent in Alberta, Canada, near a place called Peyto Lake. This came through in one of our sessions with him. We're like, we never heard of Peyto Lake. Now we look it up. It's exactly as he describes. It's just amazing, So I'm not sure if that answered the question fully, but try me again if you need to. I may have gotten off track a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, it does. And that's beautiful. Everyone has the ability to tune in. It's a matter of stillness and trust.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was and even Carolyn's, very strong on the council connection, Baba. He had a term for this because he wanted her to be able to communicate directly with him. And he said, you have to set your radio dial. You have to hit the right frequency. And of course, that's, a little bit hard to take just that and, proceed to really trust in your psychic communication capability. But I think people have different gradations of that, maybe to the level that they trust themselves. And other people like Sam from a very early age, she could see what animals were thinking, directly. And then she was able to connect to souls, on the other side. And we did many more other than just were in the book. I mean, David Bowie, and the list goes on. But It's a very unique capability for sure.
Absolutely. So, what do these souls constantly say about humanity direction? Like, are they hopeful, concerned, or somewhere in between?
Well, when it comes to humanity, it's really humanity's perspective that's really going to drive it. Like, if humanity can figure out that we are all one, that we are all connected, humanity will have a different way of treating all the connections around him. But right now, Wayne Dyer and others would say that, man has not been treating himself very well. Hence, he's not treating Earth very well. And when you start treating certain elements that are in your ecosystem poorly, you start getting very bad results with them. So the main thing that the spiritual leaders would like us to know is that we are all one. But what I can also tell you is that you have to look at man. If man is really looking at the environment and wanting to protect it, excuse me, in the right way, maybe we would have done things a little differently. Maybe in the Industrial Revolution. I mean, I mentioned before Richard Nixon, he came up with the EPA first. We were dying for smog in California. But if you look at the way the earth, you will get climate deniers. Okay. They'll say, well, it's just the weather. And to a degree, it is the weather. But the weather cycle goes greenhouse to ice house for our planet over a 100,000 year cycle. It allows time for these things to stretch out. It allows the earth to maintain balance. But what we've done specifically in greenhouse gas is in the last 150 years of the industrial era, we have spiked the level of greenhouse gas in our atmosphere dramatically. I mean, if you compare the previous 1,000 years and you look at what happened in the last 150, that's all measurable by drilling into ice caps and taking ice samples. We can see the air composition exactly. We've thrown the earth a big curveball. When you put too much greenhouse in the atmosphere, that means we trap too much heat. And the natural cycle where at night the ocean will take the heat out, the ice caps will take the heat out, and then we'll have a nice balanced environment that goes away when you degrade. You have too much heat and some of these natural mechanisms don't work very well. So we see extreme weather. We see drought and wildfires in the West, we see flooding in the East. And my main answer to the climate deniers is we've put the earth out of balance too fast. And we need to give the earth the respect to let her get back into balance. And the way to do that is to lower the greenhouse air, it's to clean up our environment. I mean, I would even offer, look what happened in the pandemic timeframe. Look at what happened to the air over, let's say Shanghai or Beijing. It cleans up pretty fast. Our earth is resilient. But we have to give our earth a chance and we have to respect our earth when we're doing things to her that are pushing her so far out of balance. Earth has a soul. We can connect to that soul. And so I would implore everybody to connect to the soul of the earth and thank her for the environment that is a gift that we have, that we get to live in, and do your best as a single person to keep things clean around you. Only use what you really need. Don't create litter to pick up litter. Just do these little things while the big stuff is being done. Nuclear fusion and maybe using seaweed and kelp for plastic substitutes. These things are being worked on. So that's kind of a long question. I apologize for that, but I wanted to get all that out.
That gives me chills. Like, peace isn't passive, it's activating our higher selves for a greater good.
Well, the whole point of this book is really, if you're distressed about the environment and you're spiritually open and spiritually curious, we can tell you how to work with the other side on this, what the other side is already doing, and what some of these inventions from the technologists that are coming down the road. So our goal is to have anyone that could benefit through messages like that, to give them some hope, to some confidence for the future. This is why we wrote the book. We're in a very tough time right now on many different things, not just environment. It's a very challenging time for us as humanity right now. So if we can just get some messages of hope out there in this area that will help people, that's really our goal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. John, your work is a reminder that wisdom doesn't die, it evolves, it whispers, it waits to be received. And to our listeners, you are never alone. Peace, purpose, and guidance are always within reach, sometimes from realms from beyond. So until next time, stay open, stay curious, and stay connected to the whispers of something great.